Hi, welcome to How to Repair. Today we're going to be testing a Beko fan oven motor and I'll be showing you how to replace it. We'll not only be doing electrical tests on the motor, we'll also be testing the motor to make sure it's spinning at the correct RPM. Whether you have a freestanding cooker, a built-in double oven or a built-in single oven, the principles will apply. The fan motor is the most important part of the oven when it comes to distributing the air. As you can see here, we've got the fan motor running and we can feel the air being pushed out of the oven because the door is open. It works in conjunction with the selector switch, the base element, the fan oven element, and also the grill element. Symptoms that can occur when your oven is not running correctly. The food may be burning at the back of the oven, but not cooking at the front of the oven. This means that the fan motor is either not turning or distributing the air efficiently. You may have other problems where the fan motor is not even starting correctly and it turns very, very slowly. This is because either the bearings may have started seizing up or the motor windings have become weak. There are many problems that can occur when a fan motor is not running, but this video will teach you everything you need to know about replacing the fan motor and testing it. The next part of the video is going to show you how to take the oven out of situ, which might not be appropriate to everyone, but it is time-stamped so you can jump forward in the video. But it is quite important to understand how the door comes off the cooker to give you ease of access to work on it. If you have a freestanding appliance, it's easy to work on. But when you have a double oven like this one or a single oven like this one, we're going to need to take it out the housing first to actually work on the appliance. Okay, the first thing that needs to be done, you need to isolate the electricity at the fuse board because the plug for this appliance may be behind it or in an adjacent cupboard. You may have it hardwired as well, and this needs to be dealt with before we lift the cooker out of situ. When accessing the fuse board, you may have a single oven or a double oven. This is a 16 amp supply, this is a 32 amp supply, or you have the main switch. Turning these off. But if in doubt, you can always turn the main power to the property. Now that you've disconnected the electricity, it is safe for you to actually start removing the oven. Now what we need to do here now is remove the actual door, not only for the purpose of lightening the load on the appliance, but also to make sure that no damage occurs to the glass when we actually take the oven out of situ. To remove the oven door is quite simple. Just open it up. On the early models of Beko machine, there will be some catches on either side that you need to bend over to actually take the whole hinge out of the frame. But on the more modern cookers, there are a couple of catches that we need to press down. And just pressing these catches down on each side, and I'll put an exploded view of this in the side here, you will then be able to actually release the two pins on the door. Take the door up to its natural position, and then you will be able to slide it away. Now we're able to remove the interior of the oven. Now we're ready to take the cooker out, but on double ovens you will need a table, and I suggest putting a towel on top of it, and you may need two people to actually lift the cooker to get it out. With a single oven, I just use a small crate. Putting this down, we are then able to remove the two screws that hold the actual cooker to the chassis of the cabinet. On double ovens, there may be up to 6 screws. Now that you've removed all the screws, we're ready to lift the cooker out. Putting your hand inside the oven, carefully lift the oven over and slide it out, dropping it down onto the case. Now, if you are using a larger oven, you will need to actually have some help doing this. We're now able to turn this around to the side, making sure that you're not pulling the cable too hard. Then we'll be ready to disconnect the appliance from the electricity. If your oven is plugged in, you'll now be able to remove the plug. But if it is hardwired in, we have to undo the electrical connection. You may even have an isolation socket behind the cooker. To remove, just put a small screwdriver in, and there's 2 clips on this that you need to put your screwdriver in just to lift up. But to double check everything, do go across the live and the neutral connection to check that there is no electricity present. As there is no electricity present, it's safe to undo. Undoing the retaining clip, move that away. Now we can undo the live the neutral, and the earth. The cable can now be pulled out and put safe. Now that you've got the cooker out of situ ready to work on, I'm quickly going to explain about the fan motor, and I'll just zoom in for you here. The main fan blade sits in between the fan guard, which is this plate at the front, and the actual cavity, then the back of the oven. When you turn it on, it rotates, as you can see here, and it should be blowing a good volume of air throughout the cooker. Now, behind the actual back plate of the oven sits the fan motor itself, from this point onwards. Here we have a cooling fan blade, which is designed to keep the bearings on the motor cool and also the motor windings. The motor windings normally have an identification label that will show you the wattage of the motor, also other information with regards voltage, and sometimes, if you're lucky, it will have a part number on it. This motor then is what drives the armature, and the bearings are phosphorus bronze. They're not normal bearings. Phosphorus bronze is a metal that self-lubricates as it's rotating, therefore keeping the shaft freely moving. The problem with this is over many years they can fill up with grease from the actual cooking and they can become stiff. This means that it would exceed the capability of the windings. Therefore, the blade may be rotating slowly or not rotating at all, or maybe needing even assistance to start rotating because they are greasy and grimy. They can't really be cleaned in any way. You just have to replace the motor, but it's not a difficult job and it's easy to do. Let's have a look inside the oven to show you how to test the RPM of the actual fan blade, as this should be rotating somewhere between 1000 and 1200 RPM, depending on your make of cooker, of course. Okay, let's put a torch inside the oven for you so you can see. Just putting that there. There are 4 screws around the fan guard, and you need to undo these. Now, these screws can be quite tricky to get out because of the steam when you're cooking and the moisture inside the oven. They can corrode over a period of time. And a lot of people have also asked me questions, what happens when the screw is unable to go into its slot because the actual steel has corroded? You can replace the screws with slightly larger threads if that is the case, because they will wear over a period of time. Once this is away, we're able to drop it down and bring this out of the way. You'll notice on this fan oven element there are no screws on this side. This is because it must be replaced via the rear of the oven. In other words, you have to take the oven out to undo these 3 screws, and you can see that in another video. Here is the fan blade, and you should be able to turn it like this. Just rotating it, and I'll zoom in for you. Next, we want to work out what RPM the motor is doing, because we can't always assume it's running at the correct pace. Now, I'm using an RPM tachometer, and this basically fires a laser light at the actual blade, and this will measure the amount of revolutions per minute that it does. But what I am doing is putting a little bit of silver tape on the actual blade here, just sticking that to the blade, because this will assist the actual meter in counting the amount of RPM. Now, I'm turning the fan on and putting the meter there. I'm able to fire the laser beam at the actual motor, and the motor now is running at approximately 1100 RPM. And this is a good motor, as you would expect. It's a new machine. And that's basically how you read the RPM of the motor. I will put a link to this in the description, and you can buy them for less than £10. They're not expensive. Next, we're going to test the fan motor, but while I'm here, I might as well take the blade off the actual motor, because we will need to take this blade off to extract the motor later in the video. This nut in the center of the fan blade undoes in the clockwise position, meaning it's opposite to normal procedure. In other words, hold the blade, turn it clockwise, and then the nut will undo. Once you've removed the nut, you will be able to wiggle the fan blade and it will come off the shaft. The fan blade has got an indentation in it, so it lines up on the actual motor shaft correctly. And this is what locks the blade into position so it rotates. Okay, next we need to rotate the cooker around. We're going to have to undo 2 screws on either side and 3 at the top here to release the top panel. Then we can remove the back panel. Make sure that the power lead is disconnected, and then we can just remove these. Once these are done, lift up the panel. Be careful of the edges, they are sharp. Now we can remove the back panel. Of course, this will vary from model to model of cooker. This is a different screw on this one, by the way, at the bottom. It's a much finer thread. And then the back plate on this model hinges. A lot of people may have a cooker where the fan motor is not turning at all, and there's only 2 ways of actually testing this. You can either have the wiring diagram and then basically follow the wiring through to check all the contacts are working correctly on the selector switch or the circuit board, depending if you've got a more modern cooker or an older cooker. When it comes to the selector switch, a lot of people have been incorrectly using the selector switch in conjunction with the thermostat, and that video is in the description below. You should never ever have the thermostat on when changing positions on the actual selector switches, and manufacturers are not printing this in their manuals clearly enough. These contacts are not designed to be switched with high wattage going through them or ampage, as they will spark and cause damage to the selector switch. Circuit boards use relays, which is basically exactly the same. It's a switch, but it's an electronic switch, which will send the power to the fan motor. Anyway, the only 2 ways of testing this will either be having the wiring diagram and being able to actually test everything according to the wiring diagram. And we're quite happy to get the wiring diagrams for you if you use the contact us page with a full description of your fault and also the model number and brand of your cooker. We need to understand whether this motor is receiving power. And the easiest way to do this is actually using the multimeter and setting it up on a live test. This means that I have to turn the power back onto the cooker. So setting the meter onto 200 volt range and putting that there, I now have to plug the cooker back in, but I also need to set the timer to manual, because if I don't set the timer to manual, of course the fan motor won't run. Turning it onto manual, of course you can see the motor rotating because this is a new cooker. But turning it on to 240 volt range, going across the 2 terminals, we can see we've got 240 volts. This will vary, of course, whichever country you're in. But that is the easiest way of testing whether voltage is getting through to the motor. Oh, sorry, I forgot to actually test the motor in situ for you to do the meter readings. So turning the meter back on, make sure the power is disconnected from the electricity. Just plonking the meter there for you. You'll need to take the 2 connections off the motor, the live and the neutral. And now we will be able to test across the 2 terminals. I'm going to set it to continuity first. And of course, you should have a continuity reading. And we've got 0.87. And also turning it to the lowest ohms range, testing across the motor, you will be able to get an ohms reading. And this is a new motor, remember, so yours should be nearly the same. And we've got 108.2 ohms reading on this motor. That shows us that the motor windings are good. Next, we need to replace the motor, and this means that we have to undo the motor from the chassis of the cooker. This is straightforward and easy. Using a screwdriver, we've already taken the fan blade off, so this is straightforward. Undoing 3 screws on this motor, and then I will explain why it's very important to make sure you get the correct motor for your oven. And just give me 1 second. Taking the 3 screws out, we are then able to twist the motor slightly and it will come away. Now, motors do vary drastically between manufacturer to manufacturer. and some of the different dimensions are very important. For example, the shaft length is really important, because if the shaft is longer, this would mean that the fan blade, which I haven't got to hand at the moment, would be pushed into the oven further and therefore start catching against the fan guard. The other mounting points can vary as well, but it's very important to get the correct motor for your appliance. And the manufacturer here has stamped a load of numbers on the motor, but none of them are actually Beko's own part number, which is a bit disappointing. Really, I like to see manufacturers put the actual genuine part number on the actual motors. And there we go. To replace it, exactly the same. Put the motor in. Make sure that it goes all the way through, lock it in place, and then replace the screws. And now we can put the cooker back together. Make sure you turn the nut anti-clockwise to do it up. Then hold the blade and hand tight and quarter the turn. And there we go. I hope this video helped you fix your cooker or oven. Remember, if you have any further questions, I will need your brand, your model number, and a detailed description of the fault. Or you could upload a video to YouTube and send us the link. You can either use the comments below or the contact us page at the website, and the link is in the description below. And if you do need any parts for your cooker or oven, remember some parts are serial number dependent, so make sure you have all the relevant information before ordering the parts. Thank you very much indeed for watching this video. If we really helped you, you can always click on the Bipolar Beer page to support the website, as that's what keeps us going and able to make these videos for you. Thank you very much indeed for watching.